Hello and welcome to the Indiana State Police Roadshow. I'm your host, Sergeant John Perrine, the Public Information Officer for the Indiana State Police Indianapolis District. The Roadshow is brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids, a subsidiary of the State Police Alliance. For more information about our sponsor, visit www.indianasfinest.com. We want to thank our good friend Tom Trial for all the work he does to get us put on YouTube each and every week. Check out the Indiana State Police YouTube channel with a lot of content. And Eddie's out today. We got our good friend Sam pushing the buttons, getting us on the radio. So thank you to him, to Network Indiana, MS Communications for getting us on the radio. We certainly appreciate the use of the studios here. So welcome to our guest today is a proud member of the 63rd Recruit Academy, classmate of mine. That's Master Trooper Joel Flores. Joel, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And one reason why I asked Joel is he's got a lot of knowledge about a lot of things. But we're back to school now, and we're talking about school bus safety. And what a lot of people may not realize is that the Indiana State Police physically inspects every single school bus in the state of Indiana. And that's quite an undertaking, and you're part of that team.
Yes, I am.
And so talk about kind of what that process is. I mean, you're really busy through the summer, obviously, right before school starts, but kind of just talk about you show up and then what's that process look like?
Well, our annual inspections start January 1, and it's pretty much starts all over every year. We contact the schools, make arrangements to go to their facilities and making sure that their buses are ready to go for inspection, making sure they're prepared. And a team of inspectors in the Indianapolis district, we go to that school and we just put our hands on every single bus and we check for deficiencies and any issues that might need to be addressed by the schools. And so, what are some of the common things you see and maybe even some of the more uncommon things that you guys find? Common things are lights. I mean, a light could be working as they're pulling it into inspection, and then as soon as we get our hands on it, the bulb might go out. Uncommon are major mechanical issues. Fuel tank leaking or a drive shaft, something like that. Those are very uncommon, but the lighting is just something that just happens almost every day. And so when you guys inspect a bus, go through all of the things you're looking at. I mean, I see you guys rolling around on creepers underneath the bus, and every detail of that bus is looked at. Right. We start at the very front of that bus and we work our way around to the back end, and we check lighting, we check emergency exits, proper stickering for emergency exits, making sure the emergency doors are working properly. And we get inside and we check the windows, making sure the handles work correctly and that we can open up an emergency window, emergency hatches, make sure the emergency equipment inside is there, fire extinguishers, seatbelt cutters, everything that supposed to be there is there. And then going underneath the bus and checking the chassis and the tires and rims and fuel system and the engines, just making sure everything's in order. And when you're checking the brakes, you're actually measuring how much brake pad is left, or is that what you're looking for? We visually check for the brake pads. If we need to go in and actually measure something, we will. We check brake chambers. We check for air leaks. We check for to make sure the brake chambers are working correctly. So if we see something visually that we need to dive a little deeper in, we'll get out the tools and we'll make sure that everything's within spec. And so while you're doing this with these schools and these buses, about how many buses do you guys do? I mean, can you do 30, 40 buses a day? Sometimes we do. And it's, we try to push through as many as we can in a day. It does wear and tear on the body, and we try to put it in consideration with the school's schedule, because there's a lot of schools that run routes all day long. It's when I was a kid, it's pretty much beginning of the day, end of the day. Now you have routes being ran all day long. Their schools are short on drivers, they're short on mechanics, so everybody's trying to juggle everything, and we're trying to accommodate that by pushing through as many buses as we can with the amount of time that we have. And so what happens if you find something wrong with these buses? I know there's kind of different levels, whether it's out of service or they can fix it right then. Right. So they if a bus passes, they get the annual sticker, which everybody wants. If there's a minor violation, they get an order for repair, which is a yellow sticker. They have 30 days to rectify that violation. Within that 30 days, they can still transport students on that bus. But after the 30 days and it's not corrected and we don't re-inspect it, the bus is out of service and automatically goes out of service. If we do find a violation that is out of service, we'll put an out of service sticker in it, and it can't be operated with passenger students on it until it's fixed.
And then there's follow-ups, right? So if you put somebody out of service, they've got to call you guys to come back and make sure they fixed what they said they were going to fix.
Right. So we might be at one school and put a bus out of service or put a 30-day sticker on it, and they might have to contact us a couple weeks later, find out where we're at, and bring the bus to us to get it re-inspected.
Is there anything you can think of where you've found a violation so egregious that you can't believe you saw it on a school bus, or you can't believe a school bus was operating with that?
I have found a few brake chambers that were rusted, that had non-manufactured holes. We see a lot of that roadside when we do truck inspections. But when you see that on a school bus, it means that was overlooked. That the mechanic who is assigned to that bus didn't do a very good job thoroughly inspecting that bus during their preventative maintenance, which, that's something that they should be doing. I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Now, I'd like to put some folks at ease and say that the vast majority of the buses you check probably have no violations or very minor, like a light bulb out.
Correct. Yeah, a majority of the buses we inspect they pass. There are a lot of schools that have very few, if any, violations. We're trying to catch and keep everybody accountable and try to catch those that are not compliant, or trying to make sure that they stay on top of what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, because you got to think those buses have to operate safely because of all the amount of children on the bus, right? If they don't have brakes, or if they have a bad tire, that could be potentially deadly to a lot of folks.
Oh yeah.
And so one conversation I get asked about often is seatbelts on buses. And I know there's a lot of studies out there, a lot of information back and forth, but is it becoming more common for you to see seatbelts on buses?
We're seeing more seatbelts on buses. There's schools that are receiving new buses daily. For instance, there's a school in Hamilton County that just recently received an order of 65 buses. So we have to go and inspect those buses.
And all those have seatbelts?
All those have seatbelts. And some of the transportation directors have stated that those seatbelts help kids stay in their seats.
Yeah.
And it helps the drivers so they can drive.
Right.
And not have to deal with discipline issues.
So it's a safety thing and also a helpful just to keep people where they're supposed to be.
Correct. Yeah.
And now, is there only 2 seatbelts per seat? Because I know sometimes they put 3 kids in a seat.
There's 2 seatbelts, and just the way that the configuration is and the seatbelts, they can only put 2 seatbelts.
And is it an over the shoulder just like a car, or is it a harness? Or it's
just like a car.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I know there's been a lot of studies done, and essentially the data just wasn't there to say that school buses had to have seatbelts.
Right.
But I think it is a safety thing.
Yeah, it is. And as long as the kids put them on, as long as they stay on, I don't see an issue with that.
Yeah, and so I know that's a hot topic, but right now, just to clarify, school buses are not required to have seatbelts in Indiana.
Correct.
Yeah, and so some people are just taking that extra thing. Now let's kind of move forward to, we've talked about the actual bus and the inspection, to the way that people drive around buses, because we get this question all the time about the stop arm, whether they should stop or whether they shouldn't stop. And the easiest way that I answered is, if you're not sure whether or not you're supposed to stop, then stop. And you're never going to be wrong for stopping, right?
That's correct.
But kind of go through when people have to stop for that school bus stop arm.
Well, whenever the stop arm's out, they need to stop. If you see the yellow flashing lights, that's a big indicator that this bus is going to stop fairly soon and let some kids off the bus.
Yeah.
So that's when you should that's when you should start slowing down. That's when you should be getting prepared to stop your vehicle to allow the bus to safely unload their passengers.
Yeah, and if you're coming in the opposite direction and you see those yellow lights, it's not the time to hit the gas and try to beat it, right? It's start slowing down because that stop arm's coming out.
Right.
And one thing is, when you are stopping or you're stopping, especially if you can see the driver, go ahead and make eye contact with that driver. That's a kind of a nonverbal communication that, hey, I recognize their stop arms out, I'm stopping. That way you can let the kids off, because a lot of these bus drivers aren't going to open their doors until they're sure all the traffic stopped around them.
Right, that's correct. And my practice is, if I see yellow lights and the bus is approaching me, I'm coming from the opposite direction, I start slowing down, and I give at least 3 or 4 car lengths away from where that bus is from me, and just stop. I give them the benefit of the doubt, and I just stop.
Yeah.
If they start creeping forward towards me, I mean, it is what it is. I'll just stop.
Yeah, and they're the only time you don't have to stop for a school bus is if you're on a multi-lane road that's divided by a physical barrier, whether a concrete wall, a grass median. If there's a bus on the other side and you're going the opposite direction, you're not required to stop. Now, I don't know of any schools that will expect a child to cross 4 lanes of traffic. They set their routes up so that they don't have to do that. But again, if ever you're in doubt, because sometimes those 4-lane roads, like in Hamilton County, I can think of 146th Street, where there's a turn lane in the middle. Mm-hmm. That's not a physical barrier. So if that school bus is stopped on the other side, letting kids off on the other side, and you're going the opposite direction, you still have to stop unless there's something physical there to stop them.
Right, that's correct.
And so again, but it always just kind of comes down to driving safe around buses, expecting those stop arms. I mean, we know what time the buses are going to be out, in the mornings and the afternoons. And like I said, sometimes even throughout the day, but for the most part, we see them in the mornings and the afternoon. Just expect that. And we recognize that it may slow you down, may make you a couple minutes late, but it's certainly not worth putting kids at risk by blowing that stop arm.
Right. And I would say give those schools those buses a buffer. Yesterday I was on a stop arm detail following a bus that had that made complaints about stop arm violations, and the bus that I followed yesterday had a vehicle approaching it, and it stopped literally. I would imagine if I was next to the bus, it was bumper to bumper. Yeah. So the front of the vehicle was nearly to the front of the bumper of the bus. Yeah. Did it stop for the stop sign? Yes, but it didn't give, in my opinion, a very good buffer between that vehicle so the students could pass through. So just give that buffer, give the students some room to cross. Yeah, and what are some other, we see people driving reckless around buses, and even if the stop arm's not out or the lights are, still need to slow down as you're around that bus. You've got to expect the unexpected. If the bus is out, you got to assume that there's kids out along the roads wherever you're at. So if you see a school bus, there's probably kids at bus stops. That we know kids do unexpected things. It's time to really focus your attention on driving, limit your distractions, and drive carefully around all those buses. Right. Yeah. Diesel prices aren't cheap, and they don't run routes or run buses just for the heck of it. So there's going to be students on those buses. Give buses the benefit of the doubt, give them room to drive. I've seen vehicles pull out in front of buses trying to, beat them. I know they're big, slower vehicles, but, just give them room. Yeah, it's just simply not safe. I mean, they're big, they're heavy, they've got good brakes, but if you pull out in front of them and they have to slam on the brakes, there's a potential you're going to injure students just by them having to slam on the brakes, not even making contact. Right. Buses don't stop on a dime. Right. And so we talk about a lot of school bus safety and things that are or are not allowed on buses. But hats off to those school bus drivers. They have to focus their attention on driving, but they're also responsible for the safety of 40, 50, or 60 kids that are on the bus with them. And so that's a lot of attention that's needed. Yeah, I know you and I both get those comments where I wouldn't want your job. Yeah. I often say that to the bus drivers, just, the multitasking and having to worry about, sometimes 40, 60 souls on their buses on top of what they're trying to do. Right. And it's very, very difficult. And one thing that's cool now is a lot of these school buses are equipped with stop arm cameras, and they're actually taking photos and video of these cars running the stop arms, and we're able to successfully prosecute those violators just based on that camera footage, and that's really neat. Yeah, that's correct. And even if they don't come from the manufacturer, they can add them on later on. Yeah, and so just because you don't see a police officer around, if you pass a stop arm on a school bus, that is considered reckless driving. That is a misdemeanor arrestable offense. Yeah. And so simply passing a school bus stop arm could land yourself in jail. And we don't want to see that. We'd rather you just see people obey the law and be safe. Voluntary compliance. That's right. My guest has been Master Trooper Joel Flores from the Commercial Motor Vehicle Enforcement Division, who focuses a lot on school bus safety. But he's out every single day with the semis and with the passenger cars and working really hard to keep our roads safe.
We want to thank the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids, a subsidiary of the State Police Alliance. Visit www.indianasfinest.com for more information on that. Check out the Indiana State Police YouTube channel. Lots of content on there, lots of historical videos along with current things. Tom Trials put all that on there, put a lot of work into it, and it really, really is neat to watch. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. Hope you have a safe week, and buckle up. We will talk to you next time.